Functionally Functional Life with Tam Collins. It's quite early. It's about 7:30, and I just made myself some coffee and a little hydration going on this morning. And I just wanted to pop on. Something came to mind, and a lot of times I find myself with like, oh my God, 45 minutes, an hour before I have to go to work, or, really only a little tiny window. And generally I will write those ideas down to film later. But when I can grab an opportunity to go ahead and get some content out, I'm really trying to do that now because I have put this off so long. My channel, this new channel, has been an idea in my head, really honestly, for about the last 3.5 years. I started thinking about this around 2018. In the early part of 2018, really, actually, in the first part of 2017, was the first seeds of it. Knowing that I wanted to do something with my childhood experiences and what I had lived through and start going along that direction. And then in 2018, I began thinking about a new channel. Besides the music channel that I already had up, that's just been kind of sitting over there dormant for years. Because yes, I'm also a singer and a writer, and I used to make music. I've got a few songs, about 6 original songs, on my YouTube music channel, Tam Collins Music. And I just didn't get to do anything with it. It didn't go any further, just circumstances in my life at that time. I do intend to get up some more original music and continue working on that. But this channel, the seeds to this, the ideas for this, all of that began churning in me about 3.5 years ago. But due to life circumstances, I was unable to get this off the ground, to really apply myself with the time that I knew it would take and really devote myself to it. So now I have that time, and even if it's getting off the ground in an amateur way, kind of here and there, and I'm learning as I go, I'm very devoted to this. It's very important to me. So I'm going to get it out there to you as I can. And you will be seeing it grow and change over time. So, this morning, I was up making my coffee, and, before I get into today's topic really quickly, I am going to finish up part 4 of the Watts family intro. I am doing a series on the Watts murder case and the couple involved. For different reasons. Discussing different dynamics of the couple. And I began that series with what I was calling the intro. And it's going to end up being, I'll need one more part to finish it up. So I am going to finish part 4 to that later this week. That'll be coming up, so you guys can watch for that. And I have a lot more content coming up for you guys, okay? So, let's move into today's topic. And it's really, really quickly, I was just making my coffee, doing my dishes this morning, and I was listening to Pete Sapper over at Empath Uprising. And I mentioned him, well, really in a couple of my videos now, if you've checked any of my stuff out. I mentioned a lot of the creators on YouTube that I enjoy or that I find informative and very helpful. And his channel was one of them, one of the top ones. As far as learning about childhood issues, triggers, trauma bonding, covert narcissism, different levels of empathy, just really some fantastic and mind-blowing information that really helped me connect the damn dots, like literally, and for my age, you guys, I've been in therapy most of my life, really, starting at about 14. And in and out of behavioral institutions and working with a therapist off and on for 25 years, off and on. And studying psychology on my own and really committed to learning patterns and studying codependency and reading books, and I took some college psych courses. Just really into it. It's been a passion for me. And there were still puzzle pieces that I just didn't have. I was still struggling in certain areas, aware of my childhood patterns and how they were playing out in adulthood, but then again, still not aware of some of them, and really how to handle that and start clearing away. I didn't realize that clearly I still had some very buried, unhealed wounds, okay? And I got so lost in trying to help others. Yeah, all those patterns, the rescuer, the saver, I'm gonna help you, and I had to catch myself at those things. We can get so busy trying to rescue someone else and look at their patterns that we forget. And for years that kind of happened to me. I had children to raise. I got so responsible. And then all of a sudden friends would come to me because I was so stable. I was raising children. And then a lot of my friendship group, at that time, drugs, alcohol, going through things, different family members, and they would all come to me because I had the stability. And I was one of the only ones getting to go to therapy or taking the initiative to go to therapy. I do feel blessed and privileged in that way, but I also feel like more people have more of a chance than they'd like to admit, and they kind of hide behind those excuses like, oh, there's no help for me, it's impossible. I know that our mental health system suffers in this country. It's not the greatest. It is hard to get in and find help for mental health sometimes. But there are things that can be done, and a lot of people just don't want to. They don't want to take the initiative. They aren't devoted to it like I was. A lot of times back in my early mid-20s, late 20s even early 30s, I was going to class, or I was going to a therapy appointment, or studying something, literally working in a workbook, doing inner child work, sitting at home on my own, or journaling or something, while most of my peer group and certain family members, they just weren't doing that. They just weren't. They were making other choices, They were self-medicating, or, just choosing a different lifestyle, a toxic lifestyle, and choosing not to devote themselves to facing and walking through those issues, okay? So I did a lot of that in the past. But with that being said, even so, it wasn't enough. It was not quite enough because of my traumatic past. I came to find out just a few years back, whoa, wait a minute. Even with all of your work, you're still struggling. You're still struggling with certain issues. You trigger off. You've still got codependency struggles. You've still got insecurity struggles. And come to find out very recently, I didn't realize. I knew that I would get a bit clingy at times, but I also knew I had been an independent woman for years too, and made good choices for myself in certain toxic situations in the past, and had stood up for myself and put that, so I had done both sides of the coin, and I will tell some of those stories later on, but yeah, it turns out to be a lifelong thing for some of us, of self-discovery, lifelong learning and realizations. And so anyway, yes, as it turns out, despite all the work that I had done, and me really thinking, I got this beat, I can move on with this, and this, and focus on other people. Sometimes we get lost in that. And that's exactly what happened to me over the last 4 or 5 years. I got very lost in someone else and their issues. And come to find out along that whole journey, I'm being triggered. I've got unhealed wounds that are coming up that, I look back and I think, I hate that I had to go through that. I've got a lot of mixed feelings about going through that and sticking around with that and the cycles we went through. But had it not been for that situation, a lot of what was wrong with me may not have come to the surface like that, I needed that purging. I needed to discover those things. And sometimes someone has to come along to trigger or mirror us to get those things up so that we can discover them and examine them. They've been so far repressed. You know, and it's just shocking. Sometimes even those of us who it's our passion to be aware of things and work through things, even those of us who are like that, we even have buried demons. We have stuff that's so repressed in us that sometimes we need somebody, you know, to shake us awake or point that stuff out to us. So it happened to me like that through that relationship. And then towards the end of last year, I ran across Pete Sapper and the Empath Uprising here on YouTube. Fantastic. Oh my God. Really, really helped me start connecting some dots about what was going on in my life, my relationship life. Yeah. And so this morning I was listening to Pete, one of his videos at Empath Uprising, and he happened to say that, you know, when his channel first got kicked off, you know, for the most part, they were discussing a lot about covert narcissism, and it was kind of a covert narcissism recovery channel in a way. It's much more than that, though. But, you know, he was mentioning that, and he said, you know, from now on, when I refer to the covert narcissist, and you guys are going to hear me talk a lot about that on my channel as well, because it's important to me. I have experienced it. I have lived through it, and it is such a hidden thing. It is such a hidden, sneaky, awful thing to endure. And it's important to me to help people be aware of this and learn about it. Because so many light bulbs went off in my head. So many people are not really informed on this particular type of narcissist. And this particular type of narcissist can do a lot of damn damage. Okay? It almost feels like an emotional and spiritual murder when they are done with you. Okay? Now, most of them don't physically murder. No. But when narcissism goes rogue, and a person's narcissism goes to the deep end of the spectrum, I believe then it starts going into, you know, it's on the high end of the spectrum of narcissism, starts going into sociopathy, psychopathy, like what happened in the Chris Watts murder case. I personally do feel Chris Watts was a covert narcissist. After listening to several different psychologists, taking in all the information and facts, taking in Chris himself, his words, his energy, all these different things, and my personal experiences from the past, just taking in Chris and what I've seen on people in the past and been around, I will never stop believing Chris Watts is a covert narcissist and has been one for many, many years. Live abuse free. If you're studying the Watts case, she will break this down for you about Chris Watts' personality and his character, okay? She's the one that really, really helped me to get into the mind of Chris Watts and his actions and covert narcissism and how it operates. How it operated with him in his mind and his marriage and his family. Live abuse free. Check her out. It was great. But anyway, moving forward. So a little understanding about the covert narcissism thing. But I've heard many people say this before. I believe it was Spiritual Whistleblower. Check her out, love her. And she was right. If you have lived around a covert narcissistic person, oftentimes you will not even know that term. You will not even be able to put your finger on what it is they're doing. You will be so perplexed and so confused. What is their deal? And it really will leave you feeling that way. But oftentimes you won't know this about a person unless they are a roommate, a romantic partner, or someone you live around 24/7 for a while. Oftentimes, even therapists and psychologists cannot pick up on the covert narcissist because they're charming. They trick you. They wear a mask. And it takes being around them behind closed doors, observing their actions and thoughts and the way they respond to things and the way they operate 24/7 for a long period, which I got to do. And in fact, I got to do that on several occasions with a roommate and a partner. So I learned about this. But what Pete said this morning was that from now on, he said, every time I refer to the covert narcissist or the covert snake, because yeah, they're snaky, they're sneaky, they can be cowardly. We'll get into that later on this channel, okay? Basically, I'm not here to bash anyone, make anyone feel ashamed of anything. I am here to spread awareness and help people learn and talk about parts of my life and my experiences. That is what's in my heart, ultimately. But yes, there have been a few people in this life. There's a type of person in this life that I don't have any pity for. And I'm not going to water down my attitude or my anger. I'm going to transmute that and use it for good. But when I'm pissed, I'm pissed. And there are certain people on this earth I just don't have anything for. You know? And so I will refer to them sometimes as a damn snake. Because that's what I feel like they are. If they are not open for change, they are not wanting to change, and they're going around this earth spreading nothing but selfishness and evil, I don't have any time for that shit. And I'm not going to put flowers around their name. I'm not going to, water that down. Now, I know that it's not my job to try and change them. No, that's fine. It's my job to be an example to myself and then others and do my thing, okay? It's not my job to try and save them or change them or convert or any of that. But at the same time, I do have a right to protect myself from those types of people and spread what I know about them. Spread my own personal experiences about things, okay? So when Pete said that this morning, he said, from now on, when I refer to the covert narcissist or the covert snake, I'm going to refer to that as my lower self. And it really clicked in me when he said that. That oftentimes we've all heard this before. In fact, it's kind of a burned out cliche now. Whatever you're getting angry at in another person is something you don't like about yourself. Something you hate about yourself. The more intense you feel about another person, you just don't like that or you hate that about them, you need to look in yourself. What is that? It's something about you that you hate. And that never really sunk in with me because a lot of times I was thinking, I'm not doing the shit they're doing. I'm pissed at them because that shit's wrong. And it doesn't feel good. It's not helping my life any. It's very toxic. I've moved far beyond that behavior. I don't do that. And it's really hurting me. It's really distracting me. It's shitty behavior. And I don't like it because it's shitty behavior. And I don't see any of it in me. What do you mean I need to look in me? It's something I hate about me. Because I don't act that, and so that was my attitude about that for quite some time. But when Pete said that this morning, once again, I go to the Empath Uprising channel a lot, especially first thing in the morning. If I wake up with anxiety, because I do have an anxiety disorder, if I wake up, just needing some spiritual maintenance or just to hear something really good, really positive, really strong, and enforcing these concepts with me, I pop onto that channel and I just let it play. I take it in. And as usual, there's always something new over there that Pete says in his teaching, in his content at Empath Uprising, that once again connects the dots for me, And when he said that from now on, when he refers to the covert snake, he's actually going to be referring to himself in his lower self, in his younger years, or, as he was walking his path to transformation and working certain issues out of himself and growing spiritually and emotionally prior to, whatever, I guess, starting the channel up. And we all, boom, it went off in my head. Damn, he's right. We all had that turning point in life, okay? And I can remember mine as clear as day. Now, while it has been many, many years since I acted that way, there was a time in my life, and it all became so clear to me. There was a time in my life where I acted very narcissistically. And I had behaviors that were not something I would be proud of today. I can't say that I was extremely covert with my narcissism, but I was a narcissist in my early years. I grew up under an alcoholic, narcissistic father, and I developed those patterns. I began running away and having to survive, and I learned at an early age manipulation is the way you get what you want. And because of my narcissistic father, I also learned that in order to get what you want in this world or survive, you go around taking what you want. You go around demanding what you want, no matter who it hurts. So, for many years in my early life, I was what I would feel like and call a grandiose narcissist for a lot of years. But I also believe empathy is on a scale, a spectrum, just like narcissism is. I wasn't the type of person that had no remorse, that had no empathy. Of course I had empathy and remorse. I wouldn't do something like go out and murder someone. I wouldn't do something like harm a child. A lot of that had been worked out of me, the child abuse and the things like that. So I had empathy and remorse, but I was on a certain level. There were certain things that I had no empathy and remorse for. So that's something I would like people to keep in mind, and I would like to study more and research more and find out more about are these different levels that we can be on. You know, this stuff is not a one-size-fits-all thing. Some people can have a certain amount of empathy and remorse that keeps them from going over the edge and killing someone, or they're not going to walk in and slap their mama, or they're not going to hurt little kids or animals, or, you know, they're not going to cross certain lines. They have that much empathy and remorse. But in certain areas of their life, they're stomping on people, taking what they want, stealing, manipulating those people, not giving a damn about how those people feel about it or how it turns out for them. And I was that person. I had that double thing going on. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, you know, that's typical of a kid who's been raised in a dysfunctional, abusive family. They're still young. They're in the streets. They are of a young and immature mentality, which is true. That happens to a lot of kids. And they aren't necessarily bad people or narcissists, but because a lot of young people are just naturally narcissistic, you know. They look at their parents like a bank, a taxi cab, and get the hell out of my way. That's kind of narcissistic. And they don't really think about how it's going to affect their parents' bank account. They don't really think about how tired mom or dad might be when they demand that ride. That kind of thing, you know. So a lot of that narcissistic stuff just comes with being young and immature. But typically, if raised in a loving and caring family situation where the balance was kind of met, the young person will mature and grow out of that, typically. Okay, so it just made me think about that when Pete said that this morning, that yes, when I get really fixated on the covert narcissist, when I get really fixated on the covert snake and what are you doing and all these characteristics that you are putting forth, it is deep in my mind. Pete was so right when he said that at Empath Uprising. He said that I am remembering a time that I had those characteristics, that I didn't give a damn about certain people, that I stomped all over everybody and took what I wanted, that I manipulated, I lied, I didn't give a damn about their feelings or how it was going to come out for them or their well-being. Just give me what the hell I want. Okay? And so, yes, I'm keeping that, I'm mindful of that now, that and Empath Uprising has helped me to remember that, to connect those dots, to be mindful of when I trigger on something, to pull it back and reflect it to what is it about me that needs to change. He also teaches that over there, that when we trigger off about something in another person, we need to reflect back to our wounded child, our past. What is it about us? What do we need to do? What is it we need to take a look at? And that shit is just so true. Oh my God. But it really connected with me this morning. You know, and I can sit here and say these things because I know what kind of person I am today. And I know how hard I have worked on that. I know how hard I have devoted myself to become that person, to lose those characteristics that were programmed in me in childhood when I didn't have a choice. I didn't have an option. I worked very hard to transform. And there was a certain age, I remember, right before I turned 30, I remember just as clear as day, I was beginning to get into my more spiritual work. And, you know, I was still in therapy. Things were coming up a notch on me in the spiritual life, really evolving. And I remember thinking, you know what? I don't like who I am. I don't like how I act. I don't like how I treat certain people. I don't like, there's still an anger in me. There's still a hatred in me. There's still something in me that I just don't like being this person that's demanding. And you know, back then I didn't know as much about narcissism, but that's what it was. I was still acting out a lot of those things that I had seen in childhood and ways in which my father had acted and treated me and all of that stuff. So, you know, yes, when we start getting upset over what another person's doing, we are remembering back to our lower self. And there is such a thing as the lower self and the higher self. The self that we strive to be, the more spiritual, compassionate, loving, honest, that would be our higher self. You know, working our way to self-actualization. And then the lower self, that's going to be the one feeding on all of these earthly things and corruption and getting our way and just revolving around our own shit. The lower self is not going to be considerate of others, not giving a damn about the well-being of others. So, you know, yeah, there's a difference. And it just made so much sense to me when he said that this morning. I was like, damn, that's absolutely right. You know, I go on and on and on a lot about having to deal with covert narcissism and how horrible it is and you know, all these things. But I don't need to forget that's exactly true. And in fact, when I've been around people like that before that I was close to, in fact, those words even came out of my mouth before. Like, look, I've been here. I've done these things. And it's so true. And I've even admitted to it before. It just reminded me of that this morning. But I've told people, I've done this. I know where you're at. I know that mental trap. I know those techniques you're using. Manipulation and denial. And I know that because I've done it. And all the tricks and traps and weavings in the brain when you are still of the narcissistic mindset, you're still under that certain defense. There's certain things that you have not healed, faced down, and worked on. And, you know, and instead of me looking back at myself and seeing what I need to continue working on in me, I would kind of fixate more on, I see what you're doing. This is terrible. You can't do this. This has to change. You know, I got a little too fixated on outside of me instead of looking back in me. Well, because with a close partner, their actions are going to come out all over you. So yeah, of course, you're going to get a little more concerned with what they're doing. If you have moved beyond that stage and you have grown in your levels of empathy and care for someone else's well-being, and you've really, really worked on your own emotional intelligence and grown in that way, and they haven't, then damn. And if you're stuck with that person 24 hours a day, then yeah, you're going to get a little fixated on what are you doing? Because everything you're doing is coming back on me. It's affecting me. Okay, and that is where we have to make the decisions that if they're not going to change, we have to break that energy tie, put the focus back on ourselves, ask ourselves, okay, what is it in them that we need to heal in ourselves, that we need to take a look at, and we need to put some distance here. And so that's that. You guys, I'm running short on time, so I will make a part 2 to this and finish it up. Thank you for joining me.